there's two actually. There's two big Mexican booths, one for the Caribbean and one for the country itself, because it's organized that way, in Mexico and the Caribbean. So two booths, but both with the big Mexico logo. Not only fairs, this was in the Expo Zaragoza in Spain. We also had the presence there. The World Economic Forum, which is quite an interesting place to show this. And we've done this consistently every year since 2008, I think. We had here, I'll show you the buses here. These buses, actually we made a survey in the World Economic Forum to understand how well this was perceived. And these buses, there were two buses basically covered with Mexican logos. They had a brand recognition of 90%. It was incredible. And obviously the people that visit the World Economic Forum do get impressed by certain things and then take that back to their countries. And the new campaign actually says it's also in Davos we launched it. So in the bottom it says discover the new Mexico or the other Mexico. So what happens when you're promoting the country, and sometimes it works very well for one thing and not so well for the others. It has been working traditionally very well for the tourism sector. Everybody associates Mexico with tourism in a way. It didn't work that well for a time for certain technologies, for instance, aerospace. Here, nobody would expect Mexico to be one of the main aerospace foreign direct investment destinations in the last 10 years. So what we're trying to do now is to build on that brand and push forward with those sectors that have not benefited from it that well. And this is the newest attempt to do that. And here are a few other ways that we use it. Well, these are basically, this is not invented. There's always a data that stands behind that. In fact, over 90% of the imports of the U.S. of medical equipment, not equipment, but medical, how you say that? The supplies. Thank you very much. Comes from Mexico. And then commercial vehicles. It's a big population actually, 110 million. Very young, about 13 million Mexicans between the age of 14 and 19 right now. So it's growing, and it has we're 90,000 people with technical backgrounds every year coming out of universities, and that's it. Try to keep it short so that if you have any questions, I'm very happy to go into them. Take this one.
Bring me up. Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions? Back here. Okay. Is that you? Oh, you? Okay, I'm sorry. You had two questions.
I know I'm hogging the questions today. How much time and effort and really thought has gone into dealing with the extremely negative media coverage that Mexico has been getting because of the drug violence? I mean, is that something that the brand managers really are taking into account? Is it focused just on the tourism side, or has that actually had an effect and something that you think about when you're looking at manufacturing and looking at some of the other sectors that that the brand would deal with?
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, the negative press that Mexico has been getting due to organized crime and the fight, I guess the war that the government of Mr. Calderon has declared on these bans is very, very influential in terms of what people think about Mexico. It takes many years to build something. It takes very little time to destroy it. We are, with using the brand, we're actually working to compensate for this. Because in one sense, yes, it's very violent what's going on. But the facts, the figures that actually lie behind it, prove that it is not that skewed, right? So the image that we get today, especially in Europe, when we read the press, about 90% of every publication or any news article is going to be tainted with violence. On the other hand, we can see cities like Ciudad Juárez, which is probably the city in Mexico that has the worst violence, booming in economical terms. There's firms popping up every month. We have new firms setting up operations in Ciudad Juárez, and you would say, okay, this is strange. It's a very violent place. Why would they do that? Well, there's very, very sound economic decisions behind that. And when you're on the ground, you realize that the image that the Mexican country has right now in terms of the violence is not necessarily something that is across the board. It's not like you're going to arrive in Mexico and somebody's going to cut off your head. Except if you're in the drug business, it's not a good idea to be in it. So the branding is, and the people that do the branding of the country are spending a lot of time, obviously, trying to understand how the brand can be used to change this. Unfortunately, as I said, it takes very little to destroy the image of a place. Just take the recent examples in Northern Africa. People think that you cannot go there and you're going to get killed, but probably it's not true. It's very bad what's happening, but the press normally goes farther than what we think should be done. I don't know if that kind of answers the question, but we face that question every time that we promote Mexico as a site for investment. Newcomers are a bit more hesitant. Companies that have operations in Mexico know how the real situation is, and they, obviously are not happy about it, but they will not stop investing because of that.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Okay.
Hi there. Do you look at competitor countries, and if so, which are they?
Depends on which sector.
For investment, just in general. Okay.
Yeah. Well, basically every country is a competitor, right? If you define it that way. No. Let's take an example. For automotive, in Europe, Mexico portrays itself as the gateway to America. Why? Because Mexico has 12 free trade agreements that gives companies access to 44 different countries, meaning that they can export to 44 different countries without having to pay any tariffs. In the automotive sector, this covers basically the entire continent. So if you, for instance, are a German company that wants to export engines to Brazil, it's actually much better for you to go and make them in Mexico and export them to Brazil than send them from Germany to Brazil. So who is a competitor to Mexico in that sense? Well, first, ignorance is a competitor, because if they don't know that they can do this, they will go and open a plant in Brazil. Problem is that if they want to send things from Brazil to the U.S., well, they will have to pay import taxes, right? If we look at NAFTA only, which is the case for aerospace, then our competitors are the U.S. and Canada, because the main aerospace industry is in North America, mainly in the U.S. So if we then ask companies to go to Mexico and invest, they will say, well, why should I go to Mexico and not to the U.S. and to Canada? And so you go down into the details. In Mexico, for instance, you have a more competitive workforce. On the other hand, in the U.S. and Canada, you may have cheaper electricity or cheaper energy costs or a better infrastructure. So it's not so evident anymore. So in the first place, for the automotive industry, you're actually not competing against anyone, but you're offering a strategic location for a company to set up. For the case of the aerospace industry, you do compete with the U.S. and Canada. And then when you see the inflows, foreign direct inflows into this industry, then you will, for instance, see that in the last 10 years, Mexico has been the first receiver of foreign direct investment in the industry worldwide, before US, before China, before anyone else. It means that what has been done to compete against the US and Canada in that respect was successful. If you take then tourism, well, tourism, you can go as a tourist to any place in the world, so you basically compete with every country. I just participated in the International Hotel Investment Forum, and Mexico is actually what they call it, hidden gem for tourism. A hidden gem, but it's number 10 in total visitors worldwide. But today, for the Hotel Investment Forum, it was more important to think about countries in Africa which have been emerging, and we just saw the example of Ghana, perfect example. 20 years ago, Mexico did not compete against Ghana in the hotel business. Today, perhaps. And I say perhaps because I'm not an expert, but at least in terms of the general perspectives, it is so. So it really depends on the sector of activity, and you have to go down to the very details to understand which country is actually a competitor to your country or not. I hope that answers it.
Okay, we still have time if there's another one or two questions or comments. Yes, okay.
My name is Yehoshua Ben Israel. I'm part of the African Hebrew Development Agency, and I also work as a part of the team with the ICD. You talked about perceptions, especially in North Africa, and how it can be changed in a day. With you being in the industry in branding, your relationship with the media, what sectors of a nation can get affected by the media and destroy your work, and how do you build against that happening?
Media want to sell. So if bad things happen, that sells. Okay? So it's very difficult. You cannot go to the media and say you shouldn't publicize this because it's bad for me. They actually will say, well, actually I'm doing it because it's bad for you, because that's going to sell more newspaper, or I'm going to have more viewers on TV. What we do, and what probably every country does, is PR. It means you have to talk to influence to people, how you say, trendsetters, to people who influence others, like analysts. Take the BRIC example. The BRIC term was coined by this gentleman O'Neill because he wanted to market a fund for what we know today as the BRIC countries. Well, this had a fantastic effect because everybody said, we're going to borrow this because it sells good. So it went from something that he thought, okay, is going to sell, and then basically it became a cascading effect. And that happens with bad news as well. It's today everybody would say, okay, Mexico, it's drug wars, right? Drug cartels fighting against each other. So it's going to take me a long time to convince you that perhaps you're not having the right impression of the country today. So PR is very important. Talk to influence. How you call it? Not influential, but the people that have a big impact on others. That's think tanks are important. Financial analysts are important. Journalists are important, but the journalists that do the research journalism, not necessarily the ones that cover news. And it's a day-to-day work, and you just have to continue.
Mr. Feldhaus, I'd like to extend also my gratitude to you for having come here. It's a very busy week, probably one of the busiest of the year for you with ITB. But we really appreciated also having Mexico represented, and we really appreciated your lecture. So if you could please join me in a very warm thank you for Mr. Feldhaus. Thank you.